There are a lot of adept weapons right now in Destiny 2. Some of them relatively new, and others are kinda outdated, usable but no longer currently obtainable in the current season of the game. I thought it might be a good idea to rank each and every one today. My name do be Fallout, and do me a favor, would you, while it's still fresh in your mind, scroll down just an inch or two, don't worry, I'll still be here, and click that big red subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll pause for a second, and hey, welcome back. See, it took no time at all. Really appreciate that. Anywho, like I mentioned, ranking literally every adept weapon in D2, new and mildly old. Why include old ones? Well, two reasons really. One, there might be someone out there who hasn't played in a while, doesn't really know what's currently meta or not, and could be sitting on pure gold in their postmaster without knowing it. Reason number two is, hey, Bungie is kind of crazy, and it's entirely possible that in the future they could bring back any of these old weapons into the Trials loot pool. I wouldn't put it past them, so it wouldn't hurt to be prepared in that area. By the way, unlike my exotic armor reviews for Warlock and Hunter, today I'm going to try and put every adept weapon into an actual visual tier list because I think it's a way more doable task than doing it to every piece of exotic armor. Regarding how we're going to be ranking every weapon, we are going for overall viability in both PvP and PvE. Kind of a big task, but hey, I'm up to it if you are. Also, we're going to be ranking these weapons in relation to the current meta. For example, if maybe there's an incredibly powerful armor mod that might make an adept weapon very meta currently, hint hint, well then that weapon could be ranked highly for right now, but their viability could very well change over time. I don't expect this to be a forever tier list, but it'll sure as hell be accurate for right now, pre-Witch Queen. And with that out of the way, let's move forward. I'm gonna keep you on your toes and go in no real particular order, but I'll try to make timestamps if you want to leap ahead to any weapon that may interest you. How about we start off strong? The Palindrome. Palindrome is a 140 RPM hand cannon, and you can currently only pick it up on certain weeks in the Grandmaster Nightfall rotation. That is kind of odd because even though it's a weapon acquired through PvE, the Palindrome right now is an incredibly viable PvP weapon. Ever since 140 RPM hand cannons became the new king of the meta after dethroning 120s, Palindrome has been pretty much everywhere between quick play and trials. Ace of Spades, Thorn, and other exotic hand cannons are always going to give good competition in terms of most used PvP hand cannons. In the legendary department though, you could easily make the argument that the Adept Palindrome is the hands down best legendary hand cannon in the meta right now, and not a lot of people would open their mouth to disagree. Yeah, the Time Lost Fatebringer is around to maybe challenge that title, but Palindrome's got a lot of neat toys that Fatebringer doesn't have access to, one of those things being Rangefinder. Palindrome already has the best base range in its 140 RPM hand cannon class of 55. Add Rangefinder on top of that, and maybe some other perks like either ricochet rounds or high cal rounds, even maybe a range masterwork, and you have a hand cannon that feels like a borderline pre-nerf 120 RPM hand cannon. If you check out d2gunsmith.com and tinker around with what is available, if you wanted to, you could have a Palindrome topping out with a ridiculous 91 range, and that's with Rangefinder on top of all that. Translation: Palindrome can tap people hard from long range in PvP, and it feels damn good. If you're looking for other options, Palindrome has great backup options, including Thresh for a quicker supercharge and Rampage for a little extra damage dealing. In column 3, Palindrome has access to either Killing Wind, Quick Draw, Outlaw, or even Overflow, which might sound a little bit odd, but actually can put in hella work in PvP. My most desired role is probably the following, give or take the barrel option. High cal rounds for me over Ricochet for the extra flinch factor in PvP. The bottom line is that as long as 140 RPM hand cannons are in a good spot in the meta, the Palindrome is a top ranked primary weapon on either MNK or controller, and I can't rank it anywhere except for S tier. Keep your eye on the Grandmaster loot rotation schedule, and if Palindrome ever pops up, be sure to hop in and try to grind one out. Next, why don't we talk about the weapon that always gets paired together with the Palindrome every time it enters the GM loot rotation, the Swarm. Boys, I gotta tell you that I am really bummed out that we have so much GM adept loot rotating around that Bungie felt the need to cram 2 weapons minimum into every weekly GM drop. It means that if I wanted to go into the GM Nightfall and try to farm for a Palindrome, there's essentially a 50% chance that instead I would wind up with a Swarm a 360 RPM arc machine gun. Unfortunately for the Swarm, machine guns aren't exactly in a great spot in the game right now. On the PvP side of things, yeah, machine guns are fine, I guess, but there's plenty of options and they all do the same job pretty well, and honestly, you're only going to be using power weapons quasi-rarely in PvP anyway. Besides, if you want to tear somebody open with a machine gun in PvP, just grab an heir apparent and make your opponent question their belief in God. PvE-wise, machine guns are having a hard time competing with fusions and linear fusion rifles thanks in large part due to particle deconstruction. Any power weapon not named the 1K Voices is pretty much suffering from extreme power envy. Granted, when Witch Queen comes, it's likely that particle deconstruction is going to get taken away to live on a farm somewhere, and we'll have a bit of a power vacuum situation going on. It's entirely possible that at some point in the future, machine guns will rise up above their current PvE ranking, which IMO is fine, but not great. Kind of a shame too, because Swarm can roll with Vorpal Weapon, a high tier PvE perk that doesn't look like it's really going anywhere anytime soon. It also has Bottomless Grief if you want a bigger mag, Surplus if you want either better handling and or reload time, and even Unrelenting to make sure you're a tad beefier in endgame PvE. Overall, the Swarm isn't bad, but until machine guns have less competition in PvE from fusion rifles, I can't really rank Swarm any higher than C tier, and that might be being generous. Moving on, how about a special weapon? The Uzume RR4, a solar sniper rifle and member of the adaptive frame family. Depending on how you feel about weapon zoom, you're either totally on board with the Uzume or hitting it with a hard pass. A lot of sniper mains in D2 feel more comfortable with their snip sniping on weapons that have lower zoom factors. For example, the Beloved was a longtime favorite before getting sunset, and that had what a lot of people consider their ideal zoom number of 40. Unfortunately, it's rare-ish that a good sniper with great options can get a zoom factor that low right now. Most meta options hover around the area of 45, and the Uzume's default zoom factor is even higher at 50. However, even with 50 zoom, plenty of people really enjoy using the Uzume in both PvP and PvE. On the PvE side, Uzume has the very clear-cut god roll combo of being able to drop with triple tap and Vorpal Weapon. Even in a PvE meta currently dominated by fusion rifles, the triple tap Vorpal combo is nothing to scoff at, and God help the meta if we ever get some kind of armor mod that cranks up the power of sniper rifle damage. For PvP, Uzume can drop with what many consider a mandatory sniping perk, Snapshot, along with the previously mentioned Vorpal Weapon to more easily punish people in their super. Demolitionist is also an option, as well as Adrenaline Junkie, which Bungie has directly told us will be getting a buff in the near future. Unfortunately, even though Uzume has good numbers and great perks, it has a lot of stiff competition from the Adored, which has pretty good perks by default, meaning you don't have to go out and farm for one. Still though, a well-rolled Uzume can easily outperform an Adored, and with its great viability for PvP and PvE, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in A tier. Because we're already on the topic of sniper rifles, I'm just gonna keep going and talk about the other adept sniper in the room, the Eye of Soul. Whereas the Uzume is an energy sniper, Eye of Soul is kinetic, but also a member of the adaptive frame family. Eye of Soul went through some interesting changes not too long ago. Its perk pool got shifted around a little bit. No longer can it roll with box breathing, field prep, or hip fire grip. It also got Snapshot moved from column 3 to column 4, meaning that unlike the Uzume, an unfortunate downside of the Eye is that it can't roll with the Snapshot Vorpal combo, at least not right now. You may have an older version of the gun that was lucky enough to drop with that combo, like me. It also was capable of dropping with Snapshot Opening Shot at one point, but that roll I didn't manage to get. What it currently can bring to the table is a bunch of other awesome perks that the Uzume doesn't even have access to. Moving Target, Surplus, No Distractions, Killing Wind, and Tunnel Vision. In column 4, the Eye can drop with another perk that a ton of PvP snipers love taking advantage of, Opening Shot, which cranks out both your range and aim assist on the first shot of your mag. Remember, Opening Shot has a cooldown time of 3 seconds, meaning you're going to get that benefit to retrigger and reproc again and again and again. One thing I gotta say is a major downside to the Eye of Soul is that both Snapshot, Vorpal Weapon, and Opening Shot are all colliding competing with each other in column 4, meaning you gotta pick one and miss out on the other 2. Still, being able to roll moving target opening shot or surplus opening shot, surplus acting as kind of a bootleg snapshot, is still pretty goddamn tight. If you really want to meme on people, opening shot and tunnel vision together might be a hilariously stupid combo for a very brief window of uber aim assist, provided you don't care too much about missing out on either surplus or snapshot. If I haven't enticed you enough yet, the default zoom on the eye is a very respectable 45, not quite as awesome as old favorite Beloved, but still better, i.e. lower than Uzume. Even though it's mainly a PvP sniper, I think with all its great perk options and numbers, I'm standing firm that Eye of Soul belongs in S tier. If you're a new PvP player looking for a great sniper to main, I hard recommend grinding out a good Eye of Soul in trials when it becomes available on any given weekend. Next up, we got the old Shadow Price Energy Auto Rifle. I think when Bungie mentioned they were going to bring the Shadow Price out of retirement, a lot of people were pretty goddamn thrilled about it. A staple weapon from D1, reliable, nostalgic, got a classic design, yada yada yada. Unfortunately for me, that's kind of where the appeal of the Shadow Price ends. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to be kind to this weapon, and I also don't feel bad about it. Auto rifles are in a meh place in the meta right now, and I'm totally okay with that. Every time we've had an auto rifle meta in PvP, I've been borderline miserable. The hard light meta was annoying. The Suros regime meta was annoying. The Uriel's gift meta was annoying. The gnawing hunger meta was annoying. I could go on. My feelings aside though, can some autos do well in the current PvP meta? Sure. Does the Shadow Price? Not looking so good all the time. Yeah, that optimal time to kill of 0.8 seconds is tempting on paper, but you gotta hit 100% of your headshots, and if you start effing up and tagging the body, that'll drop down to a miserable 1.3 second time to kill. Because it's a weapon that fires continuously, peak shooting, aka popping out from behind cover to tag foes with 1 or 2 bullets at a time, like a hand cannon, is very hard to do. Finally, the Shadow Price roll options are just, I don't know, they're really painfully mediocre to me. No rangefinder, no kill clip, no multi-kill clip, no rampage, no adrenaline junkie, no moving target. Swashbuckler is there, but if I'm gonna swash out in Crucible, I would gladly do so with another weapon that isn't the Shadow Price. Now, before you go out there and try to drop a wee ran with the Shadow Price just to spite me, remember my credo. A great player can literally do well with any weapon. I'm not saying it's impossible to do well with the Shadow Price. I'm saying there are many, many other weapons that do the exact same job, but better and with less difficulty. PvE-wise, Shadow Price does come with good options: Overflow, Feeding Frenzy, One for All, and Swash, and even Disruption Break. However, outside of being forced to rock an auto rifle in activities that feature barrier champions, I rarely choose to bring in an auto rifle. Typically, for endgame PvP, I find well-rolled scout rifles to be the much better choice, and if anti-barrier scout becomes an armor mod in Witch Queen, I will gladly look forward to a meta where I'll never really have to touch an auto rifle if I don't want to. Personally, I am ranking the Shadow Price in F tier, and it's going to stay down there until Bungie potentially gives a buff to the weapon archetype, which again, I don't even really want. Let's sidestep for a minute and talk about fusion rifles, of which there are currently 2 adepts in the game, the Plug 1 and the Exile's Curse. I'm going to start with the former. Plug 1 is an arc fusion rifle and a member of the Precision Frame family. After the fairly recent big fusion rifle rework, I've gotten into the feeling that the Precision Frame fusions are kind of my favorite fusion family for PvP right now. They're kind of the perfect mixture of not too long charge time paired together with being lethal at good range. High impact frame fusions, my former favorite, now kind of feel like they take way too long to charge, and you're probably going to get clapped by a shotgun before firing off any bolts, and I don't really need that in my life. Plug 1 thankfully has a perk that I consider to be borderline mandatory these days on hot PvP fusion rifles: Under Pressure. Because you only spawn into PvP with 2 charges in your rifle, Under Pressure is constantly activating, and because you get both better accuracy and better stability, it's at the point where if the Plug 1 wasn't able to roll that perk, it would plummet in viability for me. It also has access to heating up, which is pretty good, but in terms of giving accuracy and stability, why settle for one that only activates temporarily when you get a kill, when Under Pressure is almost always activated for free? Yeah, heating up also gives you a buff to recoil direction, but the Plug 1 is already sitting at a completely great, no need to touch it 75, which if you remember from my Does Counterbalance Do Anything YouTube video, ratio is a great number to be at for recoil. To me, the only thing holding the Plug 1 back from being an S-tier ranked fusion rifle is its lack of what I consider a maybe mandatory PvP perk in column 4. Some people are going to freak out that I just said that because the Plug 1 can drop with both Cornered and Kickstart in column 4. Both of these perks, to me, can't really compete with the likes of Tap the Trigger, Rangefinder, or even Firmly Planted on a PvP fusion rifle. While I don't mind the shorter fusion rifle charge time, Cornered and Kickstart give you a very small amount of quicker charge time with damned annoying activation criteria. Cornered, you gotta be within 15 meters of more than one enemy, which is just asking for you to get shotgunned or team shot, and Kickstart, you gotta run a bit to charge up that perk, and it can be disrupted easily. It can even expire mid-burst if you don't immediately begin charging the damn thing up. If Cornered or Kickstart gave a much more noticeable charge time reduction, I'd probably like them much more, but because IMO it's not that large of a reduction, they're not that big on my perk list. I'm calling it right now that if the Plug 1 ever gets reworked in the future to roll Under Pressure and Rangefinder together, you're gonna see a very different PvP meta happen very quickly. PvE-wise, Plug 1 is also held out of S tier for the simple fact that it can't roll Vorpal Weapon. By contrast, the Cartesian Coordinate can and is very easily farmable via Umbral Engrams. Still, the Plug 1 is a damn efficient fusion rifle. It does great in PvE even without Vorpal due to particle deconstruction, and in PvP, it's in what I think is the best fusion family and has access to Under Pressure. That alone puts it at A tier for me at the moment, which I think is pretty fair. Alright, the other fusion rifle, again, Exile's Curse, which is not currently obtainable in Season 15. Exile's Curse is a member of the High Impact Frame family, which, as I mentioned minutes ago, went from being my favorite class of fusion rifle to maybe not my least favorite, but it's definitely not as good as the Precision Frame family. The 1000 default charge time is very long, and on top of that, well-rolled Precision Frame fusions like the Plug 1 can kill from pretty damn deep. So what's the Exile really doing for me right now? The answer is not a whole effing lot, boys. Out of my 4 mandatory PvP fusion rifle perks, which again are Rangefinder, Tap the Trigger, Under Pressure, and Firmly Planted, the Exile can roll with exactly 0 of those perks. In fact, the Exile used to be able to roll Firmly Planted and even Threat Detector, also not a damn bad perk on a fusion rifle, but both of those were taken away. It's not all doom and gloom for the Exile though. It can roll the interesting combo of Slide Shot and Kickstart together. I know I just kind of badmouthed Kickstart earlier for not giving me enough of a charge time reduction, but because it's a scalar reduction, it's slightly more noticeable on a high impact frame, and it has neat synergy when paired together with Slide Shot. On the PvE side of things, Exile has access to both Vorpal Weapon and high impact reserves. While Vorpal gives a flat out 15% extra damage buff against bosses, high impact doesn't kick in until you're at half the mag left, but can give you up to around a 25% damage output buff. Not too shabby. Unfortunately for the Exile, it has heavy PvE competition from, you guessed it, Cartesian Coordinate. Again, it also has Vorpal Weapon, and it's much easier to farm for. Not only that, it's currently obtainable, where again, the Exile is not. But even if it were around right now, Cartesian Coordinate is available via an Umbral Engram, and Exile is available only through trials, which not a lot of people are happy about right now. But still, the potential is there, and because Exile has a mix of both decent and unfortunate, I'm gonna put it right smack in the middle of B tier. Next up, rocket launchers. Currently, we have both the Hothead and the Tomorrow's Answer. I'll start with the latter. Tomorrow's Answer, which unfortunately cannot currently be obtained in Season 15, is a high impact frame void rocket launcher that you were able to acquire by hopping into trials. Like Eye of Soul, its perk pool did change a wee bit from season to season, which it mostly benefited from. Gone are the about on a rocket launcher like Moving Target or Snapshot, and in are perks that can help you use the Tomorrow as a cracked trash killer or a rock solid boss DPS machine. In the trash clearing department, Tomorrow has access to both Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction, which pair beautifully together for clearing rooms in PvE with little effort. Fire off 1 rocket, get a very big boom, kill multiple people. Now you can reload and fire off 2 rockets for even more boom in the room. If you want to smack a boss really hard, Tomorrow has access to the highly coveted perk Lasting Impression, which deals an extra 20% damage, 5 more than Vorpal Weapon. Lock that together with both impact casing and auto-loading holster, and you can fire off a rocket into a boss, swap to a different weapon, keep shooting until the rocket goes boom, at which point you can switch back to the rocket and fire off another, rinse and repeat. PvP-wise, the Tomorrow does miss out on cluster bombs, which kind of blows, but not really a big deal because most people who use the Tomorrow's answer use it for PvE anyway. Tomorrow has big competition right now in PvE from fusion rifles because of course they do, but even with that competition, Witch Queen will likely bring a new meta, and rocket launchers could very easily be back on top of the mountain. I'm ranking the Tomorrow's answer in A tier with a note that you should keep an eye on it moving up in the Witch Queen depending on how the PvE meta changes. Next up, we got the other rocket launcher, the Hothead. Whereas Tomorrow required you to grind out trials, Hothead fortunately only requires you to pop into a GM Nightfall, the far easier method of adept weapon farming. Hothead has some good things going for it. On the PvE side of things, Vorpal Weapon is a-okay, not to mention Adrenaline Junkie, which again, we know will be getting buffed in the future. Hothead also has Explosive Light, which gives an overall 25% damage buff for picking up an Orb of Power. Not as consistent as Vorpal Weapon, but then again, not too shabby. Clown Cartridge is also neat, but in a sad turn of events, it's only available in column 4, meaning that if you want Clown Cartridge, you miss out on either Vorpal or Explosive Light. Also, unfortunately, the list of things that Hothead doesn't have going on is about as long as the list of things it does have going on. Hothead is unable to roll key rocket launcher perks, including Last Impression, Chain Reaction, Cluster Bombs, and Auto-Loading Holster, 3 out of 4 of which are all available on its big brother Tomorrow's Answer. And that's kind of all you need to say about Hothead. Is it good? Sure, you can put in work with it in PvE, but the competition from A, fusion rifles, and B, other rocket launchers which can roll better perks, to me, puts Hothead probably at best in B tier. For the time being, the only Hothead I'm looking for right now is going to be in my bedroom with the shades drawn, if you know what I'm talking about. By the way, shout out to Manscaped, promo code PLAYS20 for 20% off any order, and we are moving on. Got 2 more power weapons on today's list, might as well bang them out right now. Reed's Regret has one big thing going for it in Season 15, Particle Deconstruction. I mentioned earlier that we are ranking each weapon in relation to the current meta, and it should go without too much of a shock that I'm gonna rank the Reed fairly high. Unless you're kind of a weirdo, the Reed is 99% only really used in PvE. I'm not saying it's bad in PvP, but yeah, a ton of other power weapons are far easier to take advantage of. Reed does have Headstone though, a perk that you can definitely use to your advantage in PvP along with things like Whisper of Chains and whatnot. Outside of that though, I wouldn't really recommend it too much in Shaxx Land. In PvE, Reed is uber meta because it's a linear fusion rifle, and that is what's good right now. Despite having a lot of great perk options like Surplus, Heating Up, Clown Cartridge, almost everybody goes for triple tap, as well they should. In column 4, you got 2 shots at getting a great perk. Shot number 1 is Vorpal Weapon, tried and true with a 15% damage buff against any boss, but you also got Firing Line, a 20% damage buff as long as you're standing near at least 2 allies. Not too hard to achieve, and along with Particle Deconstruction, Reed is a top-tier DPS machine with little to no argument. Will it go down in viability with the removal of Particle Deconstruction? Yeah, no doubt. But for right now, the current viability is in my mind S tier. Just keep in mind that when Witch Queen arrives, Reed will still be great, but probably not nearly as cracked as it is right now. Final power weapon on today's list is the Sola's Scar, an adept solar sword and member of the Caster Frame family, meaning that you can wind up and yeet a giant projectile from downtown. I'm gonna be real with you. Sola is cool in concept and very fun to troll people with, but when you look at things from a practical POV, Sola ain't as hot as it could be. Fusion rifles are dominating the PvE meta right now, and while that could change in the future, it's likely that in terms of being a DPS machine, Sola will probably fall short of other tried and true classics like the Lament or even the Falling Guillotine. One fun thing Sola does have going for it is that it can roll Chain Reaction, not really a perk you see on weapons outside of the nade or rocket launcher family. Chuck a fiery burning projectile into a room, clear out a few ads, whee! Tons of fun. But yeah, caster frames would probably need a big buff for Sola to be cracked, and until that happens, I'm dropping it all the way down to C tier, and that's only really because of Chain Reaction. Next up, Shayura's Wrath, aka Shakira's Wrath, aka Shakira's WAP, aka one of the best SMGs on paper in the history of D2. If you've been checking out the live stream lately, you'll notice I've been using a lot of Shayura, almost to the point of where I'm becoming a full-on flat-out SMG main. Shayura has an optimal time to kill of 0.8 seconds, and not only that, unlike some auto rifles I could mention, Shayura only requires a 78% ratio of headshots landed to lock up that optimal TTK. With the right roll combinations, you can easily get to near max range on a Shayura without much of a struggle, and you really feel Shayura performing well at mid-range with such a roll. In column 3, it's hard to get a perk that isn't good. Killing Wind, Tunnel Vision, DSR, Heating Up, Quick Draw, and Moving Target. In column 4, similar story. Adrenaline Junkie, Kill Clip, Tap the Trigger, Snapshot Elemental Capacitor, and Harmony. Even though a bunch of great options, I'm most fond of either Kill Clip or Harmony. Kill Clip is awesome and allows you to immediately reach a comical time to kill of 0.6 seconds, and Harmony is a great damage option that pairs well with a sniper rifle or whatever other special weapon you want. Get a kill with an Eye of Soul, bam, swap over to Shayura, and you're at 20% extra damage output for 7 seconds, something that even Kill Clip would be jealous of. Shayura is extremely forgiving, great from the air, great from the ground. The only thing it doesn't have going for it in PvP is that it can't peek shoot like a hand cannon, but even with that going against it, Shayura is so unbelievably dummy strong and easy to use that I will easily put it in S tier. It will, no joke, probably stay up there as a top-ranked PvP primary weapon until either SMGs get a nerf, or until some other primary with an even easier skill floor comes to take that title, and God, what a horrifying thought that would be. While we're on the primary weapon train, how about the Igneous Hammer? This one is kind of tricky, but I'm gonna do my best to give it what I think is a fair rating. Not too long ago, 120 RPM hand cannons, i.e. hit hard but fire slow, were absolutely the top of the PvP meta. If you went into trials without a 120 RPM hand cannon, it was a borderline death sentence, and they were goddamned everywhere. True Prophecy, Steady Hand, and Igneous Hammer formed an unholy trinity. You could 3-tap people across the map, and if you had any type of extra damage dealing perk, including Rampage, you could immediately ramp that up to a 2-tap kill without breaking a sweat. After a good long while of that, 120 RPM hand cannons got rightfully kicked in the dick. They're still good, but they're no longer the end-all be-all meta option for bringing into PvP. And that's a pretty good way to describe the Igneous Hammer. No longer the end-all be-all, but still very good. Hammer can drop with a bunch of great perks. Quick Draw, Killing Wind, Rapid Hit, and Overflow in column 3, and Snapshot Moving Target, Elemental Capacitor, and Opening Shot in column 4. Rampage is there, but it's not nearly as cracked since you can't immediately ramp up to a 2-tap kill anymore. In the hands of a good player, the hammer can do excellent in PvP. If 120 RPM hand cannons were still top dog of the PvP meta, this would be an easy pick for S tier, but because that title is now mainly claimed by 140s, I feel good about giving the hammer a firm placing in A tier. Let's tackle another long-range primary weapon, the Hung Jury. Fan favorite scout rifle from D1 ported up to the big leagues in D2. I'm telling you right now, right off the bat, I don't want to hear from anyone about box breathing in PvP. Every time I bring up the Hung Jury in any capacity, I get like a dozen people telling me, but what about box breathing? Ugh, can that work in PvP? Sure, why not? Is it something you're very likely going to consistently, constantly take advantage of on every map in every game and just constantly clean up house in every lobby? No, at least not without great difficulty. I don't know. If you want to use the scout rifle in PvP, you do you, boo, but the majority of people out there are usually grinding out a Hung Jury to bring with them into PvE. On paper, the Hung Jury is great and has a lot of awesome perks going for it. Moving Target, Rapid Hit, Heating Up, Surplus in one column, and Adrenaline Junkie, Explosive Payload, one for all, and even Firefly in the other. Considering how viable Hung Juries are in endgame PvE content, it's a damn desirable weapon without question. I might get torn limb from limb by a few people, but there's one simple reason why I'm gatekeeping Hung Jury out of S tier, the Night Watch Scout Rifle. If you're confused, here's the deal. Night Watch is also a very, very good PvE scout rifle. Explosive Payload is a godsend when dealing with champions in PvE, and the curated Night Watch comes with both Explosive Payload and Overflow. What's better is that the Night Watch is painfully easy to acquire. Go to the tower, go to the kiosk near the postmaster, fire up the New Light quest, play for a very short time in a very easy quest, and boom, you get a fully curated Night Watch. If the Night Watch weren't in the game, or at least wasn't so easily obtainable, I might even rank Hung Jury probably S tier. But if you're a new player and you have limited time and you're trying to figure out how much of that limited time you should spend getting a cracked PvE scout rifle, I'd probably say just nab the Night Watch and spend that time going after a different adept weapon with less competition. Who knows? In the future, if we can more easily forge god rolls, then I'll revisit my rankings on the Hung Jury, but for now, I think it's high A tier, just out of range of S tier. Moving right along, we come to the Messenger. Dad gamers out there, rejoice, your chosen primary weapon is fast at hand. The Messenger is arguably the best pulse rifle in PvP right now, and that's kind of a bold statement. Vidge Wing, Cold Denial, Legal Action 2, Stars and Shadow, and even the Darkest Before have a difficult time up against a well-rolled Messenger, which ain't that hard to get. With 2 headshots, Messenger can obtain the ungodly time to kill of 0.67 seconds, provided you're accurate. While there are many interesting roll combinations on the Messenger that you can get, PvP players mainly covet just 2, Kill Clip or the ultra rare Desperado. The former allowing you to hit your 2-burst optimal time to kill with little to no aim required, and the latter being the quicker, more hyper, delete somebody immediately in a 1v1 option. Even though Desperado is the by far flashier pick, I've actually been leaning into Kill Clip a little bit harder lately. I can't really explain why. The sheer ease of the no aim, no effort 2-tap is just great. Honestly, you should try it out, even if you already have a Desperado roll like I do. If pulse rifles ever become highly meta in PvE, a Messenger got you covered there too. Kill Clip is still good, and even Frenzy and One for All are both on the table. For the most part though, King Dad Rifle will remain a staple PvP weapon for a long time unless directly given a nerf. The best part about the Messenger, by the way, is that out of every adept we've gone over today, the Messenger is the only one where I really don't care if the gun is adept or not. For something like Shayura or Palindrome, I care a great deal because I want to put adept weapon mods on those weapons. For the Messenger though, I'm only ever going to put one weapon mod on the gun, and that is Counterbalance. The default recoil direction on Messenger is a god-awful 60, making Counterbalance borderline mandatory and taking the number up to a lovely 75. And before you recommend it, I'm not putting Adept Counterbalance on ever, because even though it beefs it all the way up to 95, it harms your weapon's range, and who the hell would do that? So because I'll only ever use regular Counterbalance and no other Adept weapon mod, I kinda don't care about my Messenger being Adept or not. If you're a new player looking for a great endgame PvP Adept weapon that doesn't need to be Adept, go for the Messenger. Its awesome performance in PvP, possession of an ultra rare, ultra deadly perk, and the fact that it's easier than most Adept weapons to get because it doesn't need to be Adept, for me, puts it into the very end of S tier. Next up, the Astral Horizon, a kinetic shotgun, member of the aggressive frame family, and unfortunately another member of the can't currently be acquired in Season 15 club. If it were to come back in the future though, take note because it's actually pretty damn good on paper. Although you can make a case for it being good in PvE, it can roll with trench barrel, auto-loading, lead from gold, and dual loader. Most people out there only care about the Horizon in PvP. The essentially non-argument god roll being the combination of surplus and opening shot together. Unfortunately for our friend the Horizon, there's already a surplus opening shot shotgun on the block, and it goes by the name of Fellwinter's Lie. Fellwinter also has inherent shot package built into the frickin' gun, is curated, meaning you only ever need to get one of them to drop, and you can get it from the kiosk at the tower. That right there is hard competition for an endgame PvP shotgun with really only one viable roll combo. The saving grace of the Horizon though is that whereas Fellwinter is an energy shotgun, Horizon is kinetic. That's literally the only thing keeping the Horizon out of the why would you ever use this tier. If you love the Fellwinter, but you also have an energy weapon primary that you want to use, like, oh, say, the Palindrome, you wouldn't be able to pair the two weapons together. Enter the Astral Horizon, essentially the kinetic variant of Fellwinter if you happen to need one. Shotguns are still quite cracked in PvP, and even though the Horizon has good competition and isn't currently obtainable, it's still quite strong for what it is, and I'm happy to put it in the A tier. While we're on the topic of shotguns, why don't we talk about the Comedian? I've got good news and and I've got bad news. The good news is that unlike the Astral Horizon, the Comedian is currently obtainable, and you can get it in GM Nightfalls instead of having to go into Trials. And that's it. The bad news is literally everything else about the gun. The name of the gun is actually a little too on the nose because everything about it is a joke. All great PvP shotgun perks you might come to expect are all absent. No snapshot, no surplus, no moving target, no killing wind, no slide shot, no quick draw, no opening shot, no kidding. Literally none of them are here. And you might be thinking, well, that must mean it's a PvE shotgun. I mean, I guess. But in endgame PvE, where you're fighting unstoppable champions and other beefed out enemies who can one bang you with a ground pound, is that the type of gun you want to be rocking? Even still, it's just painfully average in my opinion. It can run Vorpal weapon, yay, but then again, so can other shotguns, some of them being slug shotguns, which you're probably better off with in PvE anyway. No 1-2 punch, no rampage, no frenzy. If I'm gonna roll into PvE with a hard-hitting energy spread shotgun, why not the Found Verdict? It even has the ability to go time lost, meaning it can run every quality adept weapon mod that the Comedian can. Found Verdict can also roll with surplus, slide shot, 1-2 punch, opening shot, frenzy, killing wind, and Vorpal weapon. TLDR, Comedian gets the hook. Stay in open mic night, kid, and work on your material. F tier for the time being, sorry. Getting down to the bottom of the barrel here, and next up is the Scholar, a kinetic scout rifle, member of the high impact frame family, and not currently obtainable in Season 15. Scout rifles are quality in endgame PvE, but unfortunately we've already got some relatively harsh competition in the kinetic scout rifle category. Hung Jury is another kinetic warrior, which has the ability to roll with explosive payload, one for all, and Firefly, not to mention the Night Watch Scout Rifle, which also slaps hard in PvE and has a great curated roll, which is easy as pie to get. Scholar ain't that bad though. It has Vorpal weapon for PvE and even some not bad stuff for PvP. Quick draw, opening shot, no distractions, elemental capacitor, and even snapshot. Unfortunately though, we ain't in a Scout Rifle meta right now, and while it can hit hard in the hands of an expert, I wouldn't really recommend it. If Scholar had the potential to roll with something like triple tap or fourth times the charm or any other reload perk in column 3 to pair along with Vorpal, I'd probably be much more keen on it. TLDR though, big competition in PvE and not the right meta for PvP. Overall, I'm putting Scholar in C tier, but hey, anything can happen in the Witch Queen. Finally, we come to the Summoner. It's an energy auto rifle and you guessed it, another adept weapon not currently obtainable in Season 15. But if you have one laying around in your vault, they're not completely terrible. Yeah, I mentioned before that auto rifle metas aren't my favorite, but if for whatever reason 600 RPM autos get buffed back up, watch out for the Summoner. An oddly good ability to perform well at range and able to roll perks like Overflow, Moving Target, DSR, Rampage, Elemental Capacitor, and Rangefinder. In theory, with the right roll, D2 Gunsmith shows us that Summoner could potentially hit a whopping 82 range, with Rangefinder acting as the cherry on top. Not bad. Actually possible of catching people off guard in PvP with the right roll, even in the current meta. PvE-wise, Rampage and Dragonfly are there, but the Summoner doesn't really strike me as being designed for PvE. All in all, Summoner can put in work in PvP, but does get outshone by a lot of other weapons. I would put it at a solid B tier, and that is the final finished complete Adept tier list for both PvE and PvP in Season 15. Kind of a lot to take in, but yeah. As mentioned before, these are my rankings. Feel free to disagree and keep in mind that everything could change as we go into the Witch Queen. If you've got strong feelings of agreement or disagreement, let me know what they are down in the comment section. Big shout out to my patrons for the month. All of you are great, but these bros in particular are top tier without question. Check out my Patreon for more info, and thank you to those who do. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.